Good morning from Blackpool Pleasure Beach yet again. I'm here today for a behind the scenes tour and to be honest with you, I don't know what to expect. They've not really said much. It's a couple of hours long and yeah, well, I don't know. It says in the email that we can take some photos and not film, but I've spoken to some people who were on it this morning and they could film. So you're either going to see some stuff or I'm going to be back here in 2 hours telling you what I saw, and then I'll take you around the park, and there's other things to talk about anyway, so hopefully you'll see some behind the scenes. If not, you'll see me back in the car park. Okay, good news. I can take you along. There is one bit where apparently not allowed to film, but the rest of it I can. And it's kind of weird seeing this place empty. There's lots going on, which I'll talk about later on, including Coca-Cola vans. So they're clearly ripping out all the Pepsi stuff and putting Coca-Cola stuff in. But yeah, I can take you along, so I will film as much of this as I possibly can. And exciting. Right, well, I'm back in the car park. That is probably the best event I have ever done. Hats off to Blackpool. You know, Andy Highgate was asking us what we thought of it, and everybody was so complimentary. So let me run you through what we did, because I've got lots of clips. I was allowed to film a lot of it, which is fantastic. So we started off in the flying machines. We went underneath, so well, here's some of that.
Here's watch your feet there, there's a little step here. Okay, so we're in the Sahara Maxim flying machine, or underneath it. He's a bit of an interesting character if you Google him online, because he's got quite an interesting story to tell. And he is actually a Sir, even though he's technically an American, but he was the inventor of this ride. And the reason he's a Sir and got a knighthood is for his contribution to firearms, because which we don't normally tell people about, but the reason why these rides exist is because he actually invented a machine gun, the first portable machine gun. He also invented the mousetrap. I said he was interesting, and because of that, that's how he got his knighthood. But he was basically using these rides to fund the development of his business, and particularly in arms sales. The first one of these was actually at Earl's Court in London. It was a bit different to this one, in that it was a different shape, and the cars that you used to ride in on it were enclosed cars. They weren't like boats like ours were originally, and they were fish-shaped. And then, because of the success of that one, he looked at other sites to put these in. So ours was one of those other sites. There was also one in New Brighton. There was also one of these in Southport as well. Ours dates back to 1904. It's the only one left of its kind now operating, and we think it's the longest operating ride in Europe, continuously operating ride in Europe. At the moment, you can probably see that there's some work going on this side, which means that cog is separate, so that's not driving. We can actually, if you, I don't know if anyone was here over the first couple of weekends that we've had, but if you went on the ride, you might have found that it didn't go as far out as it normally does, and that's because we're running it on half speed, which we can do because we're doing this work on this side. It'll be back up to running at full speed soon.
Right, so that was fantastic. And then once we'd done the flying machines, we then crossed over and did Derby Racer. Now, yet again, we got to go underneath, which I wasn't expecting, because they obviously had their fan club event where they did that. So I thought, well, they're not going to do that. But, well, here's some of that.
Hi guys, so welcome to the Derby Racer. So this opened in 1959, and it is only one of 3 left in the world of these rides. One is in Cedar Point and one is in New York. So as you can see, we've got 56 horses, all facing that way. Now in England and Europe, they normally go clockwise, but because this is an American brand, it obviously goes anti-clockwise.
Okay guys, before we go downstairs, this is the maintenance room. Obviously our maintenance guys come in here before they go downstairs and do what checks they need to do. We have a vital piece of equipment here that we have for ride operators, okay, and that is that one there. That's your main lock-off point, so you can see the green padlock on it. That means obviously this ride is isolated, and the reason we isolate it at the moment while we're downstairs is that nobody can come up and start this ride while we're downstairs, so we obviously have a safety component in place, so that's what we have to have in place for our guys, okay?
Lots of wheels.
Lots of wheels.
Yeah. Lots of wheels, lots of pulleys.
There is a square cut out of the wall just there. Anybody any idea what that's for? No, it's just a... That is for our engineers to crawl through to get inside. There's actually one just after it as well, which is a little bit smaller. So they have to crawl through to get in the middle to do the maintenance. Okay, so if you just have a little look through here, you do have another motor just there. So that one was for the forwards and backwards motion. So this obviously used to go forwards and backwards as well as up and down. But after a couple of years it became a bit problematic. So the agreement was we were just going to have the up and down motion rather than the forwards and backwards.
It would have been around 50s, I think.
Yeah.
Right, somebody had said to me there's a log flume here, and there is a log boat, but I think it might be Rugrats. Maybe not actually the log flume. Anyway, so once we'd done the Derby Racer, which was fantastic, went over, had a wee chat outside the ghost train.
We're very proud of our ghost train. We claim it's the oldest ghost train in the world. It opened in 1930, although it wasn't this version of it. When it opened, it was called the Pretzel Ride. In America, pretzel rides are very common, and it's to do with the shape of the track, and the layout of the track is where the name comes from. Obviously, pretzel didn't really mean anything to anyone in the UK, but the similarity between a ghost train and a pretzel ride is that pretzel ride would go through a series of dark rooms. And for the last 2 years, we've achieved putting live actors into the ride when the ride's running for our Halloween event, which is Dave over the back is instrumental in making that happen, because it's something that sounds really easy, but the reality of doing that with health and safety and getting it to work, being able to work again and again and again on a ride is actually quite complicated. So you can imagine we love our ghost train. The skull at the top was actually originated from the 1970s. That was added during that part. Now, this building that the ghost train in is complicated. So a bit like the Valhalla building that you saw before, we've actually got 3 rides going on in here. So we've got the River Caves. Don't ask me about the River Caves. The River Caves, ghost train, and then Wallace and Gromit sat right on top of the River Caves, and it's all in a shared one gigantic building that links onto Watson Road. We've got a shop in there, we've got a bar in there as well, just to make it super complicated.
Now, from there, we went through the secret tunnels, which basically took us into the river caves. Now, Andy said, don't ask me about the river caves, because I don't know what's going on. So we went in the tunnels, and it was basically as it was for Journey to Hell Halloween Horror Night thing. Halloween Horror Night? Wrong part, Chris. You know what I mean. There you go.
Gonna come through here. This is a nice little cut through that goes behind the ride. So we've got the ghost train on that side, and then the river coaster through there. There's actually there with the river caves, there's certain points during the ride where it's likely that the boats will stop in the event of a stoppage if the water flow stops. Although technically they could stop anywhere, but the most likely space is at the bottom of the lift and the pull up before the boats are lifted out of the water. There are certain points during the ride where we can easily get to boats. And this is one of them. It's a bit of an illusion when you're on the ride, because the tunnel from the Tunnel of Love section is actually behind this. Now you can see, and that's where the boats actually pass through in this bit. So you think you're in a cave or whatever. It's actually it's a bit of a trick. The Tunnel of Love sign, by the way, was added for filming for an episode of Coronation Street and then never got removed. But the Tunnel of Love name actually comes from the original names for these rides. Some of them, there's various ones of these dotted around the world, but some of them were called the Tunnel of Love. So that's where that originated from.
Right, well, this is where things kind of went up massively, because when we got out of there, we then went into Icon, and we went into the station, had a little talk, crossed over the track, went into the maintenance bay. So let me show you some of that.
Now at the time we knew that we wanted a launch coaster because we felt like that was whenever you're planning something new, you're looking at your ride portfolio, you're looking at what your competitors are doing, and you're trying to offer something that's different to what's out there. And at the time, launch coasters of this style were very much starting to become a common thing. And so we knew we wanted a multi-launch coaster. And we did that computer scan. What that showed us, which we were a bit surprised by, was that the existing gap on the big one structure, which was just built in that way, it's kind of a happy accident. We could fit roller coaster track through twice. We could also fit a train, and we could fit the safety envelope with people riding with their hands in the air, and that meant that we could have a much longer coaster than we had originally envisaged. And so the whole section down by the steeplechase and the Big Dipper is really as a result of that. So, a couple of cool things to notice in here. So this is where we store the trains. You can see that we have got 3 trains, although the other train's in bid. So if you were wondering where the Enzo train is at the moment, it's because we're doing some work on it, and it will be coming back later this season. When the trains are in here, they're not sat on track. You can see that there's a weird piece of track where they join the track at one end. They're actually sat on little casters on this section, and that's basically to make sure that the wheel assembly, when we go underneath, is fully accessible, and you will see in a second what that's like. So it means our engineers can get full access to the whole wheel assembly if they need to change a wheel, so on. That's all easy.
Right, I was blown away by that. That was absolutely fantastic to get that close and see all that stuff. And then when that was finished, we then went over to Revolution and climbed all the way to the top.
So it's a 3-man operation, so there's 2 operators on the other side, 1 operator on this side. So the lonely operator sits in that box, bless him. Obviously they swap every hour, so obviously they're not going to be sitting there all day. Obviously when the train comes over to this side, it'll come into this launch here, and obviously it will trigger a sensor. It just means that then it indicates the operator there that they can send it back. Once they've turned theirs, then it signals to the other side, then obviously they can turn theirs, so it's like a dual dispatch. So they've both got theirs, then it can be launched out.
Right, so that was good until the hailstones started. Then it got quite wet. So when we'd finished that, we went back to Loki's, and there was tea, coffee, sandwiches, etc., which was fantastic. But then they also gave us a little postcard, it's upside down, Chris, and a bearing from the big one, which, I mean, in the ride shop, they're really expensive. So that was pretty damn impressive. Let me get in the car, because it's wet out there. Right, there we go. Back in the car. So, what I forgot to tell you was, at the very start, so Andy gave the whole safety speech at the start. And a little bit of brief history, not too much. I didn't film that because at this point he hadn't said we were allowed to film. But it was quite funny. He was telling us about various key moments in the park's history. And then he had a slide up with various rides, and he went, I don't know why Infusion's on there. I don't know why that's a key point in our history. Which, I mean, he's not wrong. He did point out, and I've heard this before, part of the reason it got its name is because they literally managed to take it from another park and kind of infuse it. It's got a meter on either side of it, and it literally just slotted right in, which was absolutely fantastic. So, you know, not a great ride, but engineering, pretty impressive. And then he got to talking about, he says there's some work going outside on a ride that's got an identity crisis, PlayStation, or Ice Blast, or we're all trying to get used to calling it Launchpad. Now they started taking the scaffolding down, which is great. He did say it took them 8 weeks to put it up, and apparently it takes half as long to bring it down. And they've started, so it'll be about 4 weeks to bring that down. And then obviously they'll have to put the gondola back on and then do all the testing and commissioning and stuff. So, listen, it was fantastic. I did ask Andy a bunch of questions. He was kind of cagey, understandably. Like I asked why there's only one train on the Big Dipper right now, and he said it's complicated. He wouldn't tell us anything about the Bolodrome or the Grand Prix site. What he did say though, because I asked him, so listen, this event was 35 quid. And for 35 quid, we saw behind multiple rides. We got a piece of the big one. We got the postcard. We got tea, coffee, etc. Like, oh, the other thing we did is we weren't allowed to film. We did have a massive behind the scenes of Stageworks. So basically where they do all the stuff for Hot Ice, Journey to Hell, etc. I didn't realise, and the reason we weren't allowed to film is that they also create costumes for other people. They've just shipped all the stuff off to Europa Park, and they do various others. So for obvious reasons, for confidentiality, we couldn't film in there because we might have seen costumes for other parks. Now, I didn't anyway. There was one room we went into had 55,000 costumes. I'm not joking you, it was massive. And that part of the building is also part of Valhalla, which was fascinating to hear, that you kind of cross over between two buildings. So anyway, we did that. One thing, hold on a second. Alexa, studio on. There we go. Right, one thing I forgot to say. Andy pretty much confirmed we are getting a new scene in Wallace and Gromit. I don't think I caught it on camera, but he did say later this year you will see something new in the ride, which is fantastic. I know they sort of teased it, but I'll be honest with you, my gut reaction was, do you remember there used to be a robotic dog outside the shop? And then there was, or before it, I can't remember the order, there was the kind of car. I genuinely thought we were going to get like an Orbit outside the shop. But it sounds like that's not the case. It does sound like something will happen in the ride later this year, which is fantastic to hear, because I guess they probably didn't want to do it straight away in case the movie wasn't successful. And we didn't know if it was going to be next close season they would do it. So, don't know when this is going to happen, but he's basically said keep an eye out later in the year. There will be some new stuff in the ride. So, anyway, back to me down in Blackpool. Alexa, studio off. Long story short, for 35 quid, honest to God, the best behind the scenes event I have ever done. Fantastic. And Andy was asking for feedback because he says it's going to evolve, so I assume whether this is an annual thing or whether it comes back later in the year. I did ask him if this was a replacement for the fan club, and he said that there are 2 fan club events coming. I believe there should be an email coming out soon, like possibly this week. One of them's in May apparently, and one of them is in September. So keep an eye out for those. And I'm busy in May, so I'm really hoping I can make it. And also September. Now, he did say they're slightly different. I don't know what that means. But lots of cool stuff. Listen, that park, it was so busy in there today. I mean, it's closed, but they're so busy painting stuff, cleaning stuff, doing stuff. Like, it's all the stuff you don't really appreciate, right? That park is very, very busy. They've got a lot going on, and clearly they've got a ton in the pipeline. So, listen, I think we're all a bit worried about independent parks like Blackpool because of recent events with Oakwood and Flambards and stuff. And there's a risk. There is definitely a risk for sure. They know that. They've got their head screwed on. And I think there's some exciting times ahead for Blackpool Pleasure Beach. But listen, for this event, absolutely best event ever. Hats off to Blackpool. No, they're not paying me to say anything. I bought my own ticket. But yeah, listen, that was fantastic. And it said 2 hours. What time is it now? It is now 4 o'clock. So that's been 3 hours. To be fair, I've been out of the park for about 15-20 minutes, so 2.5 hours. It was fantastic, absolutely fantastic. So if it happens again, I would strongly recommend going, especially if you're a fan of the park. You will see things that you don't normally see, and it was just amazing. So anyway, if you've enjoyed this one, make sure you hit that like button and do consider subscribing. I've been Chris, you've been watching Coaster Dad, and I've got a 3-hour drive ahead of me. Adios!